Military mysteries. What happened to the Syrian Sham II tank from 2012? One of the strangest mysteries, or one of the most obscure armored fighting vehicles to appear during the Syrian civil war, was the homemade Sham II armored vehicle, sometimes called the Sham II tank. Way back in December 2012, the internet was swarmed with videos on a rare homemade armored fighting vehicle made by the Syrian rebels or opposition groups in Syria during the Syrian civil war. And that vehicle was known as the Sham II. The Sham II was an improvised armored car and armored medical evacuation vehicle that was constructed in 2012. It was actually an upgrade to another vehicle known as the Sham I, which was a homemade armored car from early 2012, and was the predecessor of the Sham III, which was a large armored truck that was unveiled later on in 2013. The Sham II was actually constructed by a Islamist rebel group known as the Al-Ansar brigade, also known as the 19th Division of the Army of Mujahideen, or Jaysh al-Mujahideen, which is a Islamist rebel group that operated within the Free Syrian Army and later the Aurora Sham organization during the fighting in Aleppo between 2012 and 2020. Now, the vehicle itself was a rebuilt civilian vehicle. It was a standard civilian car that had been rebuilt into both an armored car and an armored medical evacuation vehicle. The vehicle had a main armament of one 12.7mm machine gun or one 7.62mm machine gun, and the machine gun was remote controlled via a PlayStation 2 controller and multiple cameras. The crew said that the vehicle had an armor thickness of about 2.5mm. The vehicle's speed is largely unknown, but would have been at least 40 to 60 miles per hour, and it had a crew of 2. The vehicle was constructed in the village of Bishqatin, which is a village in northwestern Aleppo, not far from the large city of Darat Izza. The village was controlled by a group known as the Al-Ansar brigade, also known as Al-Ansar, or also known today as the 19th Division of the Army of Mujahideen, or Jaysh al-Mujahideen, which operates now as part of the Aurora Sham organization, which is a Turkish-backed rebel group that operates in the Afrin province of northern Aleppo province in Syria. Now, this Sham II armored car was used during several battles in Aleppo. It was first used during the fighting around Darat Izza in 2012, and later on in 2013 it was used during the rebel offensive in the Battle of Khan Al Assal, which lasted between 2012 and early 2013. During that battle, the Jaysh al-Mujahideen division fought alongside the Al-Qaeda affiliated organization known as the Al Nusra Front, which was the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda in Syria. During the Battle of Khan Al Assal, 51 pro-government troops along with 190 civilians were killed during the fighting, along with at least 70 to 80 rebels and jihadists. The vehicle was last spotted between 2014 and 2015. In 2014, a YouTube journalist channel known as Vocativ TV interviewed the Jaysh al-Mujahideen faction that owned this vehicle in October of 2014. During this documentary, they showed off their vehicle and they claimed that they were currently fighting both the Syrian government and ISIS. Later on, the vehicle was spotted for the last time in August of 2015, and this was an interview with a rebel YouTube channel known as the Sham News Network between August and September of 2015. Since 2015, the vehicle has pretty much gone missing. I would assume that the vehicle might have been destroyed. One of the channels that is owned by the group that owns this vehicle uploaded a video in 2016 showing that their base of operation had been bombed by the Russian Air Force. In November of 2015, Russia decided to militarily intervene in the Syrian civil war with its own armed forces, including the Russian Air Force. The Russian Air Force has completely destroyed most of the opposition in jihadi-held areas. That includes areas held by the Al-Nusra Front and other jihadist groups like ISIS, also known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. During this 2016 recording, the entire base, or at least the area where this vehicle was stored, was destroyed by the Russian Air Force. So it is safe to assume that the Sham II armored vehicle was probably destroyed in a Russian airstrike either in 2015 or during the 2016 Russian intervention. And that's pretty much it. Since 2016, the Army of Mujahideen, which is the group that owned this vehicle, has been retreating all the way back to both Idlib and Afrin province. Afrin province was once controlled by the People's Protection Unit, or the YPG, which is also part of the SDF, the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, but in 2018, the Turkish army took over Afrin province and handed it over to the Syrian rebels. It includes the FSA and the Jaysh al-Mujahideen army, or the Army of Mujahideen, who owned and constructed this Sham II armored car. So if the vehicle is still around, it might be in Afrin province, but I haven't seen any photos of it. In February of 2020, the Syrian Arab Army, also known as the SAA, launched a massive offensive to recapture the remaining parts of Aleppo. And on February the 19th of 2020, the Syrian army recaptured both Khan Al Assal and the city of Bishqatin, where this vehicle was constructed and was mostly stationed throughout most of the conflict. So if the vehicle wasn't destroyed in 2016, then it might have been destroyed during the February 2020 offensive launched by the Syrian army against the rebel and jihadi forces that were controlling the city of Khan Al Assal and the village of Bishqatin, where this vehicle largely operated. And there you have it. This is what happened to the Sham II tank from 2012. It was one of the strangest vehicles to be showcased on YouTube and other websites, and even appeared in several video games. But many have wondered what happened to the Sham II armored vehicle, or the Sham II tank, from 2012, and most likely it was probably destroyed by a Russian airstrike in 2016, and if it wasn't destroyed then, it was most likely destroyed or captured by the Syrian Arab Army in 2020 during the February offensive against rebel-held forces in Aleppo. And there you have it. This is the fate of was the fate of the Sham II tank, or the Sham II armored car from 2012.